Good morning. Shoddy excuse, I know. My computer broke, so I've taken a few weeks off. Admittedly, the computer was repaired after 2 or 3 weeks, but then I decided to take a Christmas holiday. Didn't deserve it, but hey ho. Anyway, week 14 of the best 100 groups of all time. Last month, we had Beyonce. Now, the contrast is huge as we move to possibly, arguably, the first ever heavy metal band. Are they the first heavy metal band? Are they the greatest ever heavy metal band? They're certainly in both conversations. I talk, of course, about the Black Country's finest, Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath first formed as the Polka Tulk Blues Band in Birmingham in 1968. They quickly changed the name to Earth, then their leader, Tony Iommi, left very briefly, to join Jethro Tull, lasted a month or two, and returned in January 1969 when the band settled on their proper name, Black Sabbath, naming themselves after one of their best songs. Their first single, Evil Woman, was a cover version. That's about the only cover version in their repertoire, though. It came out in January 1970. John Peel was an early champion of the band. Once upon a time, heavy metal was acceptable music to the critics, you see. Their first two albums, Black Sabbath itself and Paranoid, both came out in 1970. They didn't get great reviews from the music press, but they were successful commercially from the start. The most famous track during this period, the most famous track still, is Paranoid. As is the case with a surprising number of classic tracks, the title track was put together in just 25 minutes when the band needed just one more song for their second album. It reached number 4 in the UK singles charts, a remarkable feat for a heavy metal song and by far their biggest single still. Their only top 20 hit, in fact. Most of the hours playlist I've put together to accompany these videos, blogs, call them what you will, most of the hours playlist representing 40 years, nearly 50 years of Black Sabbath's music come from the first two albums released in their very first year of existence. There's 11 tracks, make up the 59 minutes of the playlist. 6 of the tracks are from these first two albums. Paranoid, the album, was number 1 as well, and they were definitely the leading lights of this new musical genre, heavy metal, at the time. They did another album in 71, which broke them in America. Another album in 72. The 4th album had the imaginative title of Volume 4. But they were beginning to succumb to some of the stereotypical temptations of a rock and roll lifestyle. Most damagingly drugs, but they still put out decent music despite their toxic imbalances. By Volume 4, they even attempted a couple of acoustic tracks. How very dare they? But pianos, even strings pianos on Volume 4. But Volume 4 was the 4th consecutive release to sell 1 million copies in the US. Their popularity just grew, and by 1973, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, even the critics were coming on board and saying they were a good band. They were getting slightly more proggy. Rick Wakeman even appeared on one track. They used synthesizers. It was another massive hit though. In 1974, the band took on the notorious manager Don Arden. People know two things about Don Arden. One is that he allegedly settled a dispute by dangling a guy called Robert Stigwood from a window. The other thing we know is that his daughter Sharon is married to Ozzy and was an X Factor judge. After this, they went back to basics with the album Sabotage. The critics liked them more. Ironically, we're beginning to sell fewer copies of their albums. This was, I've only gone up to 1975. As a band, Black Sabbath continued until 2017, but there's no tracks on my Hours playlist later from this 75 release. Because thereafter, although very successful and some good albums along the way, it became mainly a soap opera. The decline began when, in the aftermath of Sabotage, Ozzy began to lose interest and they began to try to be a little bit softer. They moved away from their strengths. They became radio friendly, but they just became a worse band, really. By the time Technical Ecstasy, 1976, was completed, Ozzy Osbourne was in Stafford County Asylum in Britain. I don't even think we still have county asylums, but we did in the 70s. He certainly is a nutcase, though. From here on in, Black Sabbath became a soap opera with, according to Wikipedia, 21 different full-time members and 16 others who helped out. Ozzy came in and out of a band with gay abandon. He had a hokey-cokey approach to whether or not he was a member of Black Sabbath. First he was in, then he was out. Then he twirled about. He left during rehearsals, for example, for one album, the Never Say Die album. They recruited a new singer. They did some TV appearances, this new singer, Dave Walker. But Ozzy decided to come back and Dave Walker was out. I don't think we've heard from him since. They've had a number, but it wasn't too long before Ozzy left the band again, and over the years, Ian Gillan of Deep Purple sang with Black Sabbath. You'd have expected that to be a great band. Never really was. Glenn Hughes, Rob Halford of Judas Priest, even the rapper Ice-T has recorded one track as lead vocalist of Black Sabbath. Their period with Ian Gillan was most remembered for the tour they did, and a monumental gaffe which was later parodied by Spinal Tap. Arden, the manager, ordered a stage set based on Stonehenge, but wrote the dimensions down in metres when he meant to write them down in feet. So they came back. The manufacturers made something 3 times as big as was needed, and it was, of course, too big to fit on any stage, anywhere. Couldn't be used. The best albums without Ozzy, apparently, were those with Ronnie James Dio of Rainbow fame. The Heaven and Hell album sold 1 million in the USA. But to me, Black Sabbath without Ozzy wasn't really Black Sabbath. Ozzy, to be fair, had a successful solo career of his own. Songs like Crazy Train and Bark at the Moon, without selling and overshadowing anything Black Sabbath had done since he had left. In 2002, MTV aired one of the very first reality TV shows, The Osbournes, which was a fly-on-the-wall look at Ozzy and his endearing but very dysfunctional family. Ozzy became a national treasure and has remained so. There's a documentary about him even this Christmas. And I think Ozzy somehow become more famous than Black Sabbath. But nonetheless, Black Sabbath have remained in the public eye and are still celebrated. They made the USA Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006, and their last album in 2013, called 13, which was their first studio album since 1978 with Ozzy Osbourne, got a Grammy for the track God Is Dead. Quite a decent track, nearly made the playlist. You can never be certain with Black Sabbath. The only predictable thing with Black Sabbath is their unpredictability. But this album 13 does seem to have been their swan song. Their last ever concert was in Birmingham, fittingly enough, on the 4th of February 2017. But what a band they have been. MTV has ranked them as the greatest metal band of all time. They've sold over 70 million records worldwide. And in 2019, the band were presented with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Black Sabbath, we salute you.